It's the 22nd of December 2019. Now, I'm having a very busy day. I'm tidying up comprehensively. I'm trying to sort out lots and odds and ends before the end of the year and the end of the decade. I know there's still a week left, over a week, but I'll be in Scotland visiting my parents for a period, so I won't be here to do that. I get quite sentimental with these things with New Year's, and particularly this one because it's the end of an era, it's the end of a whole decade, and I'll definitely be making more videos around that subject. Um, it's not that I believe at the stroke of midnight everything changes, and like Cinderella, everything suddenly changes, and there aren't festering problems on the 1st of January. There always is, but I still see it as a good opportunity to look at things in a certain way. Um, what I want to talk about here is injustice. Injustice. It's a very broad sort of term, and I know I've got a very clear idea in my head and in my heart and in my soul what I believe injustice is, and it's something that I've always felt strongly about. So as we get into this new era, the world's going to continue to have problems. There are going to be fundamental things that don't change from the stroke of midnight, but I think the one important word when it comes to injustice is hope. And not to be too sentimental about this, but there has to be, because the alternative to hope when we talk about injustice is accepting a sort of inevitability. Like, oh well, it's going to happen anyways. Nothing we could do about it. There are things that are beyond our control. I accept that, but what I don't accept is that injustice cannot be challenged ever. Injustice injustice of totalitarian states and their lies, injustice of people being persecuted, of human rights abuses, of torture, injustice of guilty criminals getting off the hook, people who did destructive, damaging things not really being held to account, the injustice of corruption, the injustice of innocent people being punished for something they haven't done, the injustice of exploitation. Today, there was a report that a little girl in the south of England discovered, I don't know if it was a Christmas card or a present, a product where a Chinese worker had actually begged for help, and this isn't the first time. In fact, I can read this out. I took a photo from the screen to get this caption. Just bear with me a second. We are foreign prisoners in Shanghai. Foreign prisoners in Shanghai Qingpu Prison, China, forced to work against our will. Please help us and notify human rights organisations. Human rights activist Peter Humphreys has been notified of this. Now, I've got my views on to think about specifics here. I hate the Chinese Communist regime. I think it's a grotesque example of totalitarianism, but it isn't the only one. It's probably the biggest right now in terms of scale, in terms of power, but it's not the only one. And this is just yet another reminder of the injustice in this world. It sickens me, it angers me, it depresses me, and I think there's a lot that we can do more. Nation states are not people, but I think that there is a moral responsibility, not just a practical responsibility, a moral responsibility for free states, free nations to do the right thing. And of course, free nations are not perfect themselves. We have a lot of social injustices in our own society. I don't think anyone would be so foolish to suggest otherwise. But that particular thing actually is alarming. I didn't realize, just looking at that now, I didn't realize they were actually foreign um, detainees. So what that means, I don't know. Um, whether they're Central Asians, Uyghurs, I don't know, but it's just another damning indictment of the injustices that happen in this world. And one can use any number of examples. Get injustice in the West as well, of course. I mean, today I read about grooming gang members who, in the wise judgment of the local courts, has allowed these guys to go home for Christmas. Now, that is not compassionate, that's foolish, because these are dangerous men who preyed on vulnerable young women, and allowing them home during the Christmas period just means there's a chance, a very, very strong chance, they'll just take advantage of that to go out and do it again. So injustice is unfortunately still plaguing this world. It can be seen in many forms, and I think that the better angels of our nature, the decency in human beings, needs to transcend this. Every single person on this planet, every thinking person, everyone who's in a position to act on their conscience, at least on some level. You know, we can't all be great crusaders. We can't all be leaders, but we can all do something, whether it's speaking out against things, whether it be at least being on the right side. Even if you're an introvert and you know, you're not comfortable speaking out, at least be on the right side. Never excuse this sort of thing. I feel I don't have a religion, but if I've got any religion, if I've got any sense of conviction, it has to be in this: opposing injustice wherever it's found. And I don't want to preach. I'm not a saint. I've done things I'm not proud of. I'm a normal bloke in many ways. I enjoy beer. I like looking at beautiful women, etc. But fundamental issue with injustice that we need to decent human beings everywhere. Doesn't matter what nationality they are. Doesn't matter what religion they are. If you're fundamentally a decent human being, you need to recognize right and wrong. You need to recognize innocence. You need to recognize that human rights abuses are real. They're not an invented term. It's a real phenomenon. And I'll leave it there. Injustice sickens me. Injustice enrages me. But the hope comes from the fact that things can change. We saw that in Sudan this year. A country plagued by war, a country plagued by dictatorship for decades is finally seeing some hope. We've seen another example of that is humpback whales. So, from a conservation point of view, they were almost decimated not so long ago. Now, the population is on a big rebound. A few hundred specimens now to an estimated 25,000. So, the world is never all bad or all good. There is always some flicker of optimism, maybe not on every particular issue, but there is always optimism out there somewhere. And I'll leave it there. It's just my views.